My name is Christopher Marlin, and Aaron and I were cousins, and we grew up together. I'm going to read a few letters from friends and family that were written to him and about him, and I'm going to share some words of my own after that. This first one is from his uncle. My name is Tony Marlin, or as Aaron always calls me, Uncle Tony. I was blessed to watch Aaron grow up from a toddler into the great young man that he was. Isaiah 55:9 reads, "For just as the heavens are higher than the earth, my ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts." I've clung to this verse for the past week. I, in my own human mind, cannot understand why this is happening or what the overall good is. I just have to remember his ways are higher than mine. The three words that come to mind when describing Aaron are humble, servant, hero. Many of you have heard about his 2 awards for the lives that he saved while on duty. I must be honest, if I was given such an award, I would have invited my family and friends to the ceremony, had it videoed, and then it probably would have found its way on Twitter. But not our humble hero, Aaron. We may not have known about it if my son had not accidentally found it on the internet. When we asked Aaron about it, he downplayed it and said, "I was just doing my job, being obedient." He also gave up his time recently after the storms and tornadoes that hit his hometown of Whiteland. He was one of the first people to go out and help those that he did not know, because that's what Aaron does. He was not only humble, but he was also a servant. As I have thought about Aaron's life and his service to his country and fellow human beings, it made me ask, how much more could have been done on earth for others if his life had lasted 80 or 90 years? How many more lives could he have saved? How much more time could he have volunteered to make other lives better? And then it hit me. I had asked that exact same question years ago when I was studying the life of another humble servant. This man did acts of kindness for others, oftentimes for those looked down on by society. He saved many lives and helped those who were sick. He did these things and did not want glory for himself. He could have exalted himself, but he chose to remain humble. As I studied more about this man, Jesus Christ, and his life, I read Philippians 2 that said he did not claim special privileges. Instead, he lived a selfless, obedient life and then died a selfless, obedient death, and the worst kind of death at that. There is only one perfect man, but Aaron followed that man closely. In John 15:13, Christ's words are, "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." As I read about the life of Christ and think about the life that Aaron Smith lived, it makes me realize how well I think Aaron did on the call to become more like him. And I am confident that he has heard those precious words. "Well done, good and faithful servant." I'm going to miss you, Aaron, Uncle Tony. This next one is from Anthony Roberts, a friend that he served in the National Guard with. From graduating BLC together, then coming to the 1638th, I have had the honor to stand shoulder and shoulder with you, and it will be something I never forget. You were my partner in crime in the 1638th. You pushed me to become better and better. I'll never forget the nights together, like playing musical chairs, and me kicking the chair out on you so I could win. We fed off of each other to become better as a team. I was so excited to see you on your journey to become a warrant officer because you deserved it. You put your heart into everything that you did. You always wanted to help. From helping a soldier that was having a heat stroke to you stopping on the way to PHA to give a guy a ride to his house to get gas. It didn't matter. I learned so much from you. You gave me the best peer mentor I will ever have. I will never forget all the times we spent together. It tears me apart to know that we couldn't complete our goal together. I will reach that goal for you, but it will not be the same, knowing that you won't be standing shoulder to shoulder with me. RIH, brother, till Valhalla. This next letter is from John Hill, retired major in the Indiana State Police and a friend. Aaron and I first met through an introduction by his grandpa Marlin. Aaron called him Poppy, with whom I shared an airplane at the time. Barely a teenager, Aaron was enthusiastic about learning to fly and hoped to eventually obtain his pilot's license. Flying is serious business and demands carefully following instructions and taking responsibility of your actions. Even as a very young man, Aaron was displaying those important characteristics that would eventually prepare him for the roles in the National Guard and the Indiana State Police. There was only one thing that I did find somewhat annoying about Aaron at that time. He was actually flying and landing the plane better than I was, and I had been doing it for far longer. He would head off to college and further develop his flying skills and acquire a college education, then enlist in the National Guard. He worked hard in employment and mastered such things as driving heavy equipment and excavating. When I next saw him, he had developed into a disciplined young man, strengthened in body by the military, but more importantly, maturing in his faith while forming life commitments in relationship. Megan, I first heard about you as someone who truly completed Aaron and a life partner and spouse. Aaron's family here in Greenwood all affirmed that you were a wonderful complement to each other, and your willingness to spend hours alongside Grandpa Marlin in the workshop certainly won his admiration. You and Aaron visited my wife and me in our home to discuss the possibility of joining the state police. We talked through the immense responsibility it would be to both you and Aaron, and how it could affect your marriage, your role in your community, and most importantly, how such a vocational decision would impact your faith in Christ. In listening to Aaron speak about his interest in serving others and wanting to make a difference in his community, I was particularly impressed with his demonstrated compassionate concern for others, while balanced with his strength of character and his commitment to integrity. When the two of you left our home that day, I told my wife, the Indiana State Police would be a richer community to have them join their ranks. My prayer for you and the entire Smith family is that you would experience the peace of God that passes human understanding. This next one is from Justin and Katie, Aaron and Megan's good friends here. I have many memories with Aaron. They're all ones that I'll be keeping with me for the remainder of my days, from random pictures to meaningful conversations. We would confide life's problems with each other and ask advice when we needed it. Nothing was off the table. It's hard to pick one and write about, but I think the one that means the most to me just happened days ago. After wrapping up a softball tournament for Darcy, Judy and I were headed home when she told me she left something at Megan and Aaron's house a few days prior. You see, Megan and Aaron had taken Judy and Betty to let them spend the night. Why would two grown adults want somebody else's kids to spend the night? That's just who they are. Moving on. At some point, there was a conversation of not using the upstairs toilet because it wasn't flushing. When Judy and I got there on Sunday afternoon, we were greeted with hugs and smiles. Aaron was showing me his new drone, and he was stoked to have it. Before we left, he looked at Judy and said, "Did you use the upstairs bathroom?" She remained quiet with a look of, "Oh, I just got caught." "Ha, I knew it was you," he said, with a giant smile on his face and a chuckle of laughter. He explained that he wasn't mad and that she could have just told him and he would have taken care of it right then. That part sticks with me because he was never mad about things that would drive me absolutely crazy. That's the part of Aaron I want to infect my life. I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be more like that. Always happy, always smiling. Love you forever, Justin, Katie, Judy, Darcy, Betty, and Rosie. These next letters are from retired Lieutenant Brian Gable from the IMPD and his wife, Sergeant Jennifer Gable of the IMPD, and they're also friends from CrossFit. I had the privilege of first meeting Aaron at the CGX CrossFit, where I was immediately drawn to the sight of a trooper car parked in the parking lot. As I entered the gym, his distinguished demeanor and well-groomed haircut made it apparent that he was the trooper. I introduced myself, where I worked, and what I was doing, and our bond was instant. We became workout companions, often attending the gym together at 4:30. Working for two different police agencies, we would often engage in lighthearted banter, poking fun at each other's respective agencies. Aaron possessed an unmatched level of selflessness, consistently showing genuine interest in my work and endeavors. As the coaches began their class promptly at 4:30, we would inevitably gravitate towards the corner of the gym, a place where Aaron preferred to hang and work out. We would find ourselves involved in conversation and goofing off in the corner while we were supposed to be exercising, talking about the differences between our organization and general police talk. Aaron had an uncanny ability to remember details of my life. He frequently reached out, inquiring about my progress, my upcoming retirement plans, and even my new job. His thoughtfulness and genuine concern about my well-being were evident in these gestures. He recently sent me a text right before I retired, checking in on me. We were in different roles with our different agencies, and I was able to still discuss things with Aaron because he understood the daily stress of my job. I felt comfortable sharing things with him that I could not share with other people. Aaron was always happy and engaging with his wife at the gym. You could see the love he had for her. Aaron was a true hero without hesitation and went into danger. I know he loved Jesus. It was evident in the way that he was raised by his loving parents. In these times of sorrow, it's important to remember that Aaron would not want us to be sad, but rather rejoice in his faith and be comforted in knowing that he is with his Savior, Jesus Christ. That was from retired Lieutenant Brian. This is from Jennifer. As the wife of a retired IMPD lieutenant, I too had the pleasure of working out with Aaron and his wife Megan. I often saw Aaron in the afternoon CrossFit class after working late shift hours. Aaron was an easy person to talk to, and we'd love to have what I like to call cop talk conversations. He talked about his passion for law enforcement, and he talked about Megan and his two dogs. I will miss those times walking into the gym and not seeing Aaron in his corner. I am grateful to have known him. Now it's my turn. The most famous sermon that's ever been given starts with this line: "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." It's a comment that Jesus is making about where humility is going to take you in his kingdom. Growing up, Aaron and then my little brother Johnny and I did all kinds of things together. Our favorite pastime, like any good millennial, was playing Nintendo 64. Specifically, we loved playing a game called Cruisin' the World. It was a racing game where two of us would race against 6 computer-generated opponents. And instead of us trying to get second and fifth or third and fourth, we set our goal that one of us, no matter what, each race would get first. So we developed a strategy, we honed it from there, and what it was one of us would focus on racing fast and clean, while the other one of us guarded him. Now, guarding consisted of bumping, tailgating, cutting off, really anything was on the table for that second racer. Do you want to guess which one Aaron was? See, Aaron didn't care if he got second or if he got 8th, as long as we won. From an early age, he felt most comfortable behind the wheel, chasing bad guys so the good guys could arrive safely. From an early age, others winning was the real win for Aaron. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. There were moments in these games when sibling rivalry would flare up, and I would start to do what I did at home, which was pick on my little brother, but not at Aaron's house. Although I was older by 6 months, I was neither bigger nor stronger than Aaron. And every time, Aaron would defend his little cousin because Aaron defended the marginalized. As a child, this was incredibly annoying. And as an adult, it depicts the kind of man that he would later become and the kind of career that he would choose. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. A few days ago, I was on the phone with Megan. We were talking about all of the things. I was seeing so many articles and videos online about Aaron. And I was beaming with pride at how much notoriety he is getting because he deserved it. And then Megan said something to me that immediately after we hung up, I wrote down because I thought it summarized their marriage in a sentence. She said, "I know, and Aaron wouldn't want any of this. So I just keep blowing it up more and more." That was Aaron and Megan. Deep love and deep respect that could not be shaken, covered with a thin veneer of brother-sister banter. And of course, she's right. Aaron wouldn't have wanted that because that was Aaron. Not wanting any spotlight or attention, but just quiet commitment to doing what was right. And so what started and is still an instruction for all of us in this room is now proudly a reality for my cousin. Blessed is the poor, humble, gentle,